talk your ear off. She's a great lady. I've had a lot of fun working with her in the last few years. She was a very indecisive beekeeper at first, driving me crazy, and she has came thousands of miles in the distance she's gone. I love working with her now. We do some pollination and all together. Her husband's a great guy. I love her like a sister. She's been a great vice president and just fun to work with. And we still call, talk on the phone about a lot of things. She's become a great friend. So, but why I called her up here is because we got together as the association. We got What's it? It took me that long to get anything organized without her. With her, I had her to organize things, and things went pretty well. Without her, the wheels fell off. So,
yeah, there will be really well.
so we had a plaque made up out of a hive board from the association. Thank you for her support, dedication from 2015 to 2018. We had a copper plaque embossed with our emblem in it, and all put together. She's speechless. Almost.
I do want to thank everybody, and he's absolutely right. I was the rookie beekeeper. I had no clue. I got into beekeeping because I saw Charlie Murphy used to come here on the street corner selling those little honey bears, and I stopped and said, I want to know more, and he said, come to a bee meeting. And I'm like, you have a bee meeting? Had no clue it was this kind of organization, but I'm so excited to be a part of it and to be able to see everybody grow. And so I have empathy for you guys that are brand new as well. So when I go out and help, I try to help at least now. I'm still learning. Every day I'm learning. I think even you are learning every day. There's always something new with beekeeping, which is what makes it so fun. So thank you guys. And you guys just support everybody. Everybody support each other when there's something to do. Help each other out. And I think we're doing a great job, actually.
I know we got a great one.
Yeah, we did. Thank you.
All right, I think I've taken care of the business, unless someone's going to yell at me something that I haven't done. So, yeah, without any further ado, I think I've got everything everyone caught up. Unless someone's gonna... So, can I get Josh to come on up and... You need microphones here.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Today I'm going to be talking about urban sideline beekeeping. Slideshow up here. All right. That's actually our Great Bay apiary. A couple hives. Those are my rock stars this year. Harvested honey last last week, and got about 200 pounds off each one of those colonies. But I didn't start that way. How I started beekeeping is probably how a lot of people start, with a swarm, a rescue. I was working, and there was a swarm of bees that landed on this tree, and a couple of us at work were trying to figure out what do we do, who do we call, pest control. And I said, you know, I'm going to catch these bees, and I'm going to become a beekeeper. And I called a friend of mine who, he was a beekeeper in the area, and kind of talked to him a little bit. He said, oh, you got to get registered with the state. He told me all the stuff you got to do. And so I went, I put a long sleeve shirt on, some gloves, duct tape, mosquito net, and a 5-gallon bucket, some mesh. I knocked those bees in there, got them in the bucket, brought them home. And then I went home and started looking online at what bee boxes were. I had no idea. I thought they were kind of like maybe like dresser drawers that you pull out. There was honey. It was just something I'd seen from afar. I was driving down the road. So I started reading about different boxes and frames inside. And so I just got my saw and I got some wood out of my yard and started cutting up some boxes and making some frames. And got these bees, dumped them in there, put the lid on, and then I called the state. And I got a hold of the main guy, Jerry Hayes, I think, who was doing it at the time. And he said, well, you really need to requeen them because they couldn't be Africanized. So he gave me the number of a queen breeder in Dade City. And so I called him, and he made a date when he would have a queen available. He said, now the day before, go in there and start looking on your frames and your foundation. And I'm like, what's foundation? He's like, oh man, you have no clue what you're doing. He's like, anyways, try to find the queen, kill her, and then the next day I'll sell you a queen, you can introduce her. I had no idea what a queen even looked like. So that date came, I go in the box and the bees are gone. They flew away. And so I called up the beekeeper, I said, hey, I'm not gonna need that queen, those bees flew away, they're gone. And he said, well, if you really wanna start beekeeping, I'll sell you a whole colony of bees. And this was at least 10 years ago. I bought a full-size 10-frame colony with the super full of feed for $140 back then. Those were the good old days. I picked it up at Flying J in Dade City in my truck, or I had a 4Runner at the time. So duct taped it up. I was really nervous driving home with the beehive inside of my car, but I got it home, and that was my introduction to beekeeping. And so I started, I went to the library, I got 2 books that they had on beekeeping, started reading, I figured out what supers were, what bee boxes, they're the same thing, so there's like 10 different names for everything in beekeeping, learned what foundation was, actually bought some boxes, I realized they had standard sizes, you didn't just go and cut wood whatever size you want to make boxes, and so I started beekeeping with 1 bee colony in my backyard, probably about 10 years ago, and after that I split that colony, they raised their own queen, it actually worked. Started doing bee removals, cutouts, catching swarms, and before I knew it, I had a bunch of bee colonies in my backyard. And it was just something I never realized I would enjoy it so much. Just getting home from work and going back and working with bees. And then we got a honey harvest, and we had gallons of honey. And I bought this little extractor, this little Chinese extractor for $100, 2 frames, spin it with your hand. And we started harvesting this honey, and we had more honey than we could eat, so we started giving it to family members and friends. And before we knew it, the word was out that we had local honey, and all these people wanted honey, and they wanted to buy it. And so I thought, hey, I'm gonna start a little side business. At the time, I had about 4 kids, working as a pastor, not making a lot of money, and so I started beekeeping as a sideline. I first started selling honey in mostly gallons, and I sell for like, I don't know, like $25, really cheap. And gallon jugs, I found they were expensive to order, and I was like, I can go to Publix and I can buy a gallon of water for 69 cents. And so I started buying gallon water jugs, and I would just pour them out and dry them out until one of my customers called and said, hey, the thing split in my cupboard. There's a gallon of honey all over everything. So there's a lot of learning curves trying to figure out how to actually be a person that sells honey. But it is a great way to make a little extra cash if you're able to produce honey with your bees. Like I said, I had about 4 kids when I started. I have 6 kids now. We had bought a house in 2006, right at the peak of the market. The market crashed, a little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, and we were about $120,000 under, upside down our mortgage, with not a lot of options. I wanted to add on to my house, and I didn't make enough money in my job to save money, just enough to pay my bills and feed my kids. And so through the honey business, I was actually able to save up money, and I built an addition, a 400 square foot addition on my house. Now we have beds for all of our kids. It's awesome. We got 2 bathrooms, and I can thank my bees for that. And so just keeping bees in my backyard, I kept about 12 colonies in my backyard, and made quite a bit of honey on good years from those bees. at that time, most of my customers were word-of-mouth customers, just people hearing that I was a beekeeper, come by our house, call us up, pick up honey. And then something happened that took out all my bees. My next door neighbor, they had their house tenanted for termites. And my bees were right there, and I was a little nervous about it. But the tent went up, the chemical was in, the gas was in there, my bees were doing fine. The day after they took the tent off, all my bees died. And what I found was my neighbors had water barrels, rain barrels, up against their house that was underneath the tent. My bees would go there to water. And so what I think happened was the bees went there and there was still pesticide had affected the water. And so at that point I had just invested from that little 2-frame extractor to an 18-frame motorized extractor. And now I had no bees. I bought a bunch of boxes. I was getting ready to build up and expand. And so I said, what do I do now? And so I bit the bullet. I went and I bought a bunch of nucleus colonies and I started over. But from that point I realized that it wasn't a good thing to keep all my bees at one spot. I needed to have multiple apiaries. And so I want to talk about that for a little bit. If you're a hobby beekeeper, you just want a colony or 2 or 3 in your backyard, it's great to have one location. But if you actually want to start producing honey, something you're going to find is if you can get multiple locations, and if you want to build up bees, it's a lot better to have multiple yards for splitting, and you'll find even from one neighborhood to the next, not even a mile away, it'll be night and day with nectar flows. That's what I found. Completely different honeys. And so I started calling my family members, my parents. They allowed me to keep bees at their house. This is my sister's backyard, actually. That's a little apiary I was setting up, and that's what most of my apiaries look like. And I got about 10 of them around town right now. Just little corners in backyards, some business properties that I privacy fence. I put some bee stands and threw some colonies back there. Once you start keeping bees on other people's properties though, and I was really surprised that I actually have people coming up to me in markets and saying, hey, we would love to have bees, but we don't want to keep them. Would you keep bees on our property? And I have a lot of yards just from people coming up to me and saying, hey, we want you to use our property to keep bees because we care about the environment. But that gets into general liability insurance. That's one of my sons, Judah. He was a little guy at the time. He's 11 now. That was his first bee sting. And as you can see, he's not real upset about it. But most every one of my kids has been stung. It's been during honey harvest. That's when neighbors, I've had my neighbor stung once. It was during honey harvest. And just something that I've been doing for the last couple of years is I do use bee escape boards. And I put them on a day or 2 before I harvest the honey. I tape everything up so no robbing gets in. And I'm able to go, and the honey supers are mostly cleared. And if you're doing beekeeping in the city, it's much better than blowing them out or shaking them. Because especially in the fall time, the bees get a little nasty when that nectar flow stops. And so I've been using bee escape boards so I don't get nearly as many kids stung or neighbors stung. But general liability insurance is a good thing to have, especially if you're transitioning from being a hobbyist to a sideliner, and if you keep bees on other people's property. It's one thing for someone to sue me because I have bees on my property, but if someone was to sue my parents or some person that wanted bees on their property, I'd feel pretty bad about that. And so, so I do have general liability insurance. If you guys have notes, if you're interested in that, I can give you a couple of numbers, a couple of companies that I've used before. One is Beekeeping Insurance. It's beekeepingins.com. And their number is 888-537-7088. And they're a great company. I've had a policy with them for quite a few years, about $500 a year to insure my bees and also to insure my honey, so that when I'm selling in markets, some markets require that you have your product insured. 7088. And then this year I actually switched to Texas Insurance. And they have some great policies as well. I got a policy with them that also insures me to do bee removals. And it was about $62 more. And one of the differences was the other company, I had to add every property onto the insurance policy. This policy I have now, it covers my bees wherever I'm at, any property, wherever I'm moving them. And so I know for me it was a lot of research trying to figure out who insured bees, which companies were best. So if this helps you out, Texas Insurance is txins.com. It's their website. You can find the number there. It's a lot of peace of mind if you're keeping bees on other people's properties to know that if something did happen, you have an insurance policy and someone that will help you out with that. So you're transitioning from being a hobbyist to a sideliner. One of the things that you're going to need to upgrade is equipment. There on the left, that's my first extractor there. It has since shattered to 1 million pieces. It lasted for a few years, and now I have a little bigger extractor. It's an 18-frame Man Lake radial extractor, and right now I got about 150 colonies. Most of those aren't production colonies right now, but like last week I spun out 60 supers in a day with that, and so it's something that for me it's going to last me for a while. But one of the things I've found with equipment is balancing needs versus wants. Now, if you start looking at the bee supply companies, there's a lot of things I'm like, man, I could use that, right? When it gets into automatic uncappers, because it gets real tiring taking that hot knife or the scratcher and doing this all day. But once I start adding up all the things I want, I get up and close to $100,000. And that probably wouldn't be the greatest business move for me right now. And so I try to make do with what I have, try to use it until it really gets to the point of this is just too much, I need to upgrade. I heard a commercial beekeeper once gave the advice, buy equipment, build bees. And I want to talk about that for a little bit because this is something I've found to be very helpful for me in my philosophy with beekeeping. Buy equipment, build bees. I know Sebastian's here. He doesn't hold to that view. He's always building equipment. But he's special. He has all that awesome woodshop stuff, which I know. But one of the things that I see people do is they want to go from being a hobby beekeeper to a sideliner or a commercial beekeeper. And they go out and they buy 100 colonies, 200, 300 colonies. And they go straight from having 3 colonies in their backyard to trying to manage and make money off of a couple hundred colonies. And it usually doesn't go too well. Usually they end up with a bunch of empty boxes with no bees, or a bunch of bees that they don't know how to make honey with, or how to market it. And so what I found is if I can build my bees, I believe that if I have the skill to get to a number of building bees, along the way I'm going to learn the skills needed to manage those bees. And so, starting with a few bee colonies and building it up, the most colonies I've ever bought is 20 colonies, 20 nukes. But I try to build my own bees. And by building my own bees, I'm gaining the skill and the knowledge of managing bees, bees that are healthy, bees that are thriving, bees that are going up and not going down. And so that's my personal philosophy is I buy my equipment, I buy my boxes, and I build my bees. Because even if you have equipment and you don't build the bees up into that, equipment still has value. If it's new especially, it still has value. If you buy a bunch of bees and they die, you just threw a bunch of money away. And so that would be some advice if you are trying to grow and get to another level is move slowly. Don't try to go overnight from being a hobbyist to a commercial beekeeper, but grow your way into it. And being a sideliner, I think, is a great way to do that. 2 things that I feel like I've learned in over 10 years of beekeeping, and I feel like I've unlearned a lot more things than I've learned, is number 1, treat for mites, and number 2, be gaining more bees than I'm losing. And those are the 2 things that I feel like That's the only thing I've figured out in beekeeping. I try new things every year, and most of them are failures. Some of them work, most of them are failures. But those are the two things that I feel like I can hold on to. Treat for mites, because mites will take out your hive. And if you don't think you have mites, you do have mites. And number two, be gaining more bees than you're losing. You are going to lose bees. That's just a fact of beekeeping. And if you're gaining more than you're losing, you're doing good. One thing that I like to preach is nukes, nukes, nukes. I love nukes. If you don't know what nukes are, it's a term for a small colony, a nucleus colony. Usually it's 5 frames of bees. And so I make nukes all the time. Every time I have a chance, I make nukes. And I keep a lot of nukes for myself. And they're a great resource. I have a bunch of colonies that I'm not expecting to make any honey off them. I'm just expecting them to be a colony, to be nukes. And what I find is I have, in every one of those nukes, hopefully I have a queen. If I have a production colony that's struggling, that queen's not doing well, I can just take that nuke and I can engage that queen. I can replace the queen in the production colony, or I can combine the two and really give a boost to a production colony. And so nucleus colonies are really important for me in my beekeeping operation. One of the things I'm experimenting with this year, and I'll let you know in a couple of years if it worked or not, it may totally fail, is like I showed you earlier, most of my bee yards are very small. And one of the challenges with keeping bees in the city is space. There's not a lot of space. And so one of the things I'm experimenting with is instead of running, I've been running 10 frame boxes, is going to the 5 frame nucleus boxes and making skyscrapers, stacking them up, and doing two nuke boxes, a queen excluder, and then 2 more for honey supers. And this was my first year messing around with it. I actually harvested quite a bit of honey doing it that way. And so I know I'm not the first one to do it, but it's something that I've been messing around with just as a way to fit more bees into really small spaces. And Becky will see all about it next inspection. All right, now to the fun part. Products and markets. Now, one of the things that I found is that by being a beekeeper in the city, I am right in the middle of St. Petersburg. I have a very unique product because there's not a lot of people, there's barely any people who are keeping bees in the city and actually making enough honey to sell. Would you guys agree with that? Making honey is not the easiest thing. If you can start figuring out how to make honey in the city, you have a unique product. There's not a lot of people doing it. There's over 3 million people in the Tampa Bay area. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are really interested in health and in eating healthy. And they are all potential customers for local raw honey and hive products. There's a lot of people that are looking for local raw honey. And there's way more people than this group right here could ever meet the demand. I can never meet the demand in just the St. Petersburg area for local raw honey, truly local raw honey. And so what I've done is I have focused on a hyper-local market. For me, it's been St. Pete local raw honey. It is something that nobody else is doing. I mean, there might be a couple people doing it, but nobody's really focusing on St. Pete local raw honey, get the word out there. And then another bit of advice that I would give is try to package your product nicely. You know, we put a lot of work into producing honey, especially as urban beekeepers. Our bees put a lot of work into it. And treat it with the respect it deserves. Put a premium price on your product. If somebody wants a cheap jar of honey in a squeeze jar, send them to Aldi's. You can go, it's like $2. You can get a squeeze jar of honey at Aldi's. It's amazing. It's coming from overseas. But if you're making honey in the city and you're trying to sell it, realize you have a special product, and there are people out there that will pay a premium price to get it. There's a lot of other people who won't, but there are people who will. And so for me, it's targeting that market. Comb honey. I found that comb honey has been the biggest blessing for me at markets. And I got a couple of my products that we have at markets regularly. And this is an 8-ounce jar of just our fall, mostly pepper honey mixed with a little summer honey in there. And these are called Muth jars. They're a nice kind of a recreation of a classic 1800s jar, cork top with a beeswax seal. Just a nice looking jar. And I sell these for $8 a piece. And so that's getting $16 a pound for honey. When I do 1 pound jars, these jars I sell for $15. So that's $15 a pound for honey. My biggest seller, my biggest money maker in markets is what we call chunk honey. And this is just a 1 pound glass jar and it has a chunk of honeycomb in it. And by adding that chunk of honey, I sell these for $20 and they sell all day long. And so that's getting $20 for a pound of honey. And so, and then here is cut comb honey. This is freshly cut comb from our fall harvest. You see the nice yellow cappings from the pepper. And I sell these for $15 and they are selling like hotcakes. Apparently there's some kind of fad going on online that teenage girls are watching about cut comb honey. I don't know what it is yet, but they've been flocking to our market to buy the cut comb and buying us out. And so by focusing in and doing comb honey, adding a comb honey aspect to my operation, I'm able to turn a super of honey into about $600 for a super. Now on a commercial level, I mean, I go out, yesterday I went down to Miami to buy some Florida local honey, and I bought honey for $2.33 a pound, 140 bucks a 5-gallon bucket. That's the commercial market. If you're able to focus in on a hyper-local market, you can turn that into $15 a pound easily. And that's the only way you can really be profitable in beekeeping. Urban beekeeping. People, they shop with their eyes first. That's what I found. The first thing they're going to look is something that catches their eye. Now, just about every market, there's markets I do where there's some of the main honey sellers there, and they have honey in jars, squeeze jars, and so I try to have a market setup that's a little different, that's going to catch someone's eye. And the comb honey is something that really gets people coming over, looking. And then I found my best honey seller. I got a picture of her right there. It's that girl in the observation hive, my queen there. She's smart. That's my best honey seller. When I bring an observation hive to market, I sell way more honey. It just happens that way. The week before last, I think my wife and Holly, I think, sold honey at the market. And then last week I went by myself. I'm not nearly as pretty as these women, but I brought the queen, and I brought the observation hive, and I sold way more honey. And I was kind of like, looking at the numbers, comparing, and I found that with the observation hive, I sell more honey. And so if you're doing markets, I would highly encourage you, invest in an observation hive or make an observation hive. That's just what I make. And what it does is it gets people, they're walking by, they go like this, they do a double take, they come over, they start looking, you tell them, hey, there's a queen in there, she's marked, see if you can find her, and you start talking about bees, and it goes to honey, and I found at markets, if you can get into a conversation with someone, most of the time they're going to end up buying something from you. And so, having a setup, having things that draw people in, comb honey, observation hives, I found those are great ways to market your product. There's also a lot of other products that you can get into. I know that I have people all the time asking me if I do pollen. And it's just something that I haven't got into yet. I haven't wanted to hassle with it. But if you start collecting and processing pollen from your colonies here in a local market, there's people that will buy it from you. A lot of different hive products. I know I was seeing one guy was making a beard balm with his wax and just trying to make different things that other people aren't doing. And so for me, it's all about finding that niche in the market, that place that you fit in, that you find a very focused market. Hyper-local, I think, is the way to go if you want want to be profitable with beekeeping and with sideline beekeeping. Because there's a lot of honey out there, there's a lot of, people that are kind of doing the same thing, and if you can do something a little different, I found that that's how you can be profitable with beekeeping. And so I'm going to open it up now to any questions that anyone may have about sideline beekeeping.
Where do you get those chopsticks from?
I get these from Man Lake. Yeah. Well, they pay for themselves, that's for sure.
That's not spice.
Yeah, I get about, I think it's a case of 100 for maybe, I don't know, $60 or something, but yeah. But you can, you can sell these for $20 a cut, easy, and you're gonna make your money back home. It's suggested you do. Okay, yeah, I got a bunch of like the cookie cooling racks, and I put them over a baking rack, and I cut them, I set them on there for a day or two, and then from there, so all the honey that's open in the cell drains out, so you want to dry them first, and then you package them and freeze them.
Don't put them on a flat sheet and pull some of the toppings off and cause more. Yeah, you set it on a rack, it makes a difference.
Yep.
For baking sake, do you have to register each site that you have under a separate name, or that will fit under your own name?
All under your own name as a beekeeper.
So the fact that you have hives in 10 places, you only have one certificate.
Yes. Yeah. And Becky can tell you more about the number of, what do you got to see, 30% or
Of the hives?
to inspect them?
No, it's only 10%.
10%.
5% if you get more than 200.
Okay. So for me, we go to the Great Bay Yard usually once a year. And I got most of my biggest yard is Great Bay Yard. And so that's all that is usually inspected.
For sideline, how many hours do you put in? I know it is gonna vary a little bit with.
Yeah, I mean-
But on average, like what?
Well, I recently, I quit my job, I'm doing this full-time, and so now I'm taking this next jump from sideline to full-time. It's an experiment, I'm trying to do it a different way than anyone's really doing it. But I've been working a ton of hours the last couple of years, because I've kind of seen that coming, and so I've been just building up colonies and buying equipment. But I think, 15 hours a week, you can do a lot of work with your bees being a sideliner. And different, during honey harvest, during swarm seasons, that's your busy time. Winter time is more, I get my bees down where I want them, make sure they got enough feed, light treatments, and then it's kind of focus on markets and the business side of it. So there's definitely different seasons to it.
Are you doing any work with pollination?
No, I'm not. And one of the things that is a selling point for me is I'm keeping bees in the city. I'm connected with the people of the city, and a lot of my customers are I don't know the way to put it, are very liberally minded and very sensitive to how animals are treated. And so I actually have people coming up to my stand and saying, "Are your bees trafficked?" And they see the documentaries about the pollination side, and so one of my selling points is these are urban bees. They have a home in the city. They're not getting moved around every couple months, and so I haven't gotten into the pollination side of it. Now I do want to see Johnny and Becky pollinating together. You guys got the little paintbrushes out there climbing the trees.
Don't tell our secrets.
That's the future of pollination, right?
What markets are you at, Saturday market or?
No, I do the Corey Avenue Market on Sunday to St. Pete Beach every week right now. I'm doing a market called the Royal Palm Market, which it's been every Thursday night. It's going every Thursday and Friday downtown right next to Intermezzo Coffee. Central and 11th Street. And then I usually do the indie market every first Saturday of the month downtown by Green Bench Brewing Company. And so those are the markets that I'm doing right now. And I'm getting ready, I just got a commercial kitchen, so I'm getting ready to do some retail stuff as well.
Josh, you talked about all the splits you're doing in the nooks. Do you find that you have to re-clean every year, or do you have any philosophy on that?
It's better too. Last year, I re-cleaned everything. It kind of set me back. I went through in March and I basically killed every queen except for the ones that are just too good to kill. And I got queen cells, and I think they got chilled on the transportation because I had almost zero take on those. And so I spent the whole month of March just trying to get things queen right and in combining. And so it did set me back this year. But young queens, you can't leave them. So re-queening, I think, is very important. And for me, one of my biggest challenges keeping bees in Pinellas County is the bees that survive and do well here, they are so swarmy. I mean, you look at them, they swarm. And Great Bay, every time I go out there, there's a swarm on that lemon tree. You know, we were out there doing some work days, there was like 3 swarms. And so I've been trying to find some genetics that are a little less swarmy and to keep a more pure line of bees. And so that's something that, for me, re-queening is very important to producing honey, to get a good line of queen that's not going to swarm every other week. And if you get that Africanization in there, they swarm a lot. And so I do think re-queening is very, very important for being productive in beekeeping. If you just want bees that stay alive and have bees in your backyard that are going to fill up half a box, you go do a removal and put those bees in there. They're probably going to be great survivor bees, but they're probably not going to make you a lot of honey most of the time.
Re-queen.
All right, any more questions?
Re-queen.
Sebastian's a queen breeder, right there. Re-queen, right?
Re-queen.
Re-queen.
You don't want nasty bees either.
All right, well, thank you guys for having me.